fill the opening chock full of jokes. But we don't. We never do.
No.
Sometimes we do.
Sometimes.
But not usually.
But not usually.
Anyway.
Okay.
Sometimes when people yawn, they sound like a Homestar Runner character. It turns out.
I know, Jake.
Sometimes.
Nick likes it.
I do. I like it a lot.
Do you want to? Are we talking about Pokemon Go? Has anyone here even played that?
I did just to be grouchy about it, but
I loaded it up.
All right. Well, we don't have to talk about it.
I followed a kid who was playing it and took pictures of him.
Oh, we'll talk about that then.
Shut up. What? God, why are we saying anything?
Well, good job, everyone.
It's July 14th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 271. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin. Isn't it gross that it's July 14th, 2016?
It is gross.
Yeah.
You mean just because of the
passage of time?
Oh, just in general.
Okay, that's so
it's
funny that
pretty
you
gross.
would say that this week because literally as I was walking over here, so we just moved offices to a new part of town. We're in downtown San Francisco now, in what's called Soma, which is south of Market, which is like a lot of sort of office buildings and new residential high-rises and commercial stuff. And
the baseball stadium.
And our beautiful baseball stadium, that's true. And as I was
Pokestops, Poke gyms.
I'm sure there are those. And as I was getting off the train, to like the metro, to get to here, I had this just like sudden realization. I was looking out into just the downtown, and I noticed like, oh my God, there's so many like glass and steel high rises of a very particular type, like very new high rise construction style.
Where the glass is weird colors.
Yeah, and they're swoopy and rounded instead of. And it made me remember growing up. So growing up, I was familiar with cities like New York and San Francisco, which were places I had lived. And that was my idea of an American city. And the skyscrapers in those cities are very kind of staid and 20th century and stately. You know, like they're, a lot of stone. And when
there's space between the windows, is what you're saying.
yeah.
Well, and when they are glass and steel,
stately
there's like,
space.
True,
it's a distinction.
Stately space.
Yeah.
When they are glass and steel, they're often like very hard 90-degree angles at, just square or rectangular shapes.
Yeah.
And I remember, seeing pictures of Asian cities, particularly places like Taipei and Seoul and, these sort of like explosively growing metropolises.
The new ones.
Yeah, the new ones. And I'm like, oh, these are like new looking cities. And the cities that I know are like old looking cities. And then I just realized suddenly today, like,
you're in one of
wait,
those
this has just
now.
happened.
Yeah.
This is just, and I didn't notice as it was happening. And suddenly I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah,
like,
once you cross Market Street and leave the financial district, it's just like glass.
Yeah, but even then, like, it's only been in the last decade that those have popped up to the degree that they are.
Yeah, like that Jasper.
Yeah, like that Jasper. There's a high-rise residential building called the Jasper. So, Nick, I hope I've
seen that
filing
one.
your application.
I think I've seen
soon.
that a couple times driving in here.
Yeah. And it made me reflect.
I assume that you're a millionaire now.
It made me reflect on the fact that, like, the future just sort of suddenly appeared. Like, it doesn't. I mean, it, like, happens so slowly. It's like the frog boiling in water. I know it's a very facile observation, but I literally just, like, 20 minutes ago was like, wow, this city that I was born in that I know really well suddenly is just different than my entire conception.
I've noticed this maybe more because I drive in from Oakland often, so I I end up seeing them appear around me.
Yeah.
But
also it just applies to literally everything in life now. Like our entire life and world is just like, oh shit, we're in the future in ways good and also completely horrible.
Oh, is this you? Is this you segueing into?
I'm gonna bite on this like huge segue that's just appeared.
Okay, go for it.
A wild segue. A wild segue has appeared. A wild seg, and I'm going to take it. man, Pokemon Go is a weird ass thing. Jesus Christ. Okay, so
is it weird, Nick?
Oh, it's so weird.
Okay, how weird is it? Are you now like setting me up to ask that?
I mean, sure. I mean, here's the thing. So I went to an actual gym the other day, and which is not a Poke Gym.
What gym?
On the stupid game that people are playing. Just a YMCA. Uh-huh. So as old as you can get, as old and crusty as you can get.
Right, classic gym.
Yeah, and I was in the gym, and the sort of machines that I'm using are facing like a bank of glass that look out onto the street.
Uh-huh.
And as I was working out over the course of like 20 minutes, I was watching all of these people walk by, and all of them were staring at their phones, and I was thinking to myself, okay, probably some of these people are doing work or whatever, but most of these people, I'm going to guess, it was like 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, and they're all kids, and I'm like, oh, God, they're all sucked into this game, aren't they? And so I noted this one kid.
You're
I was
like the guy in Soylent Green.
Yeah. And
oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, it's so weird.
It's Pokemon.
So there was this one kid that I noticed, and he walked back and forth like 3 different times, and so I just picked up his, I just realized,
Are these like gym customers, or I don't understand.
There's people on the street outside the window.
Yeah, you missed the part where I'm looking out onto the street.
Sorry.
Excuse me, for 20 minutes.
So
and I sort of like recognized this kid, and I was like, okay, he's walked back and forth 2 or 3 times. Either he got something from the store for his mother, or he's, on the way to his whatever extracurricular activities, or he's just hunting for Pokemon. But I'm going to remember this kid. And so he had this backpack on, which looks like the backpack you wear in the game. And I leave the gym, and of course that kid is like right there. And I just started to follow him, and I followed him basically all the way to my apartment. But then, like, I couldn't get a good view of his phone, and so I didn't know if I was just following this guy as just a weird, creepy guy, or
the answer to that is yes.
Well, yes, the answer to that is 100%
yeah, you were
yes.
about to say if I was following him as a creepy guy, or what you meant was
or
and
also you were doing,
and I was verifying that he was playing the game, and of course, like we got to my block, and of course, while I was following him, I had the.
So just coincidentally that he was going to your home?
Yeah, it was totally coincidental. I was following him the whole way, and I pulled up the game just to see if there were any Pokemon on the route, and there weren't. And so he got to my stop, and he just had this most like exasperated expression on his face, and he just went like, ugh. And I could just see as he dropped his arm to the side that the game was pulled up on the thing, and I was like,
0 Pokemon found this entire time.
Like, oh, God.
Says the game.
So you followed a kid from the gym back to your house.
Yes, kids, play this game.
Yeah, it's really weird, Nick. All the crazy stuff Pokemon Go is making people do.
It's a strange thing. I do find it just sort of. I had a really harsh reaction to it initially. I guess I've softened a little bit on it, but I don't really know what to make of it. It's a really strange phenomenon, because I have just seen multiple people wandering around just completely. And the sort of like, I don't know, PR angle that people are picking up on is that this is a game that like allows people to, or like, encourages people to go outside and like enjoy life. And
it does do that, though. I was kept awake by a bunch of kids out in the park across the street from my house the first 2 days that game came out, because they were all there's a Pokestop right there. So
yeah,
kids socializing deep into the night up to no good
gets them into the wild, but they're also just now completely sucked into their phones, where they're like getting hit by cars and stuff. So like, what? How is this any better?
Okay.
How is it better than them just being in their house, where they're not like being obstruction to people who are actually enjoying the outside?
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh man, all that outside that you enjoy.
I sometimes enjoy the outside.
Maybe you should play a little Pokemon, Nick.
I did play it.
See the world.
I did play it a little bit.
You only did to spy on that kid.
Well, I did that, and then on the way here in a cab, I was like, I wonder if I can game this. I wonder if I can actually just exploit this game. And you can just drive around and pick up Pokemon and catch them in the wild in your cab driver's ear.
I feel like your thesis might be a little bit off. The thing that you're declaring as broken might not be Pokemon Go.
I don't know.
The only component of this that bothers me, because I think the going outside and sort of, I don't know, I've read, things from people who literally just like met people and had conversations and stuff, and that's really
Someone's
cool.
already been married because of Pokemon Go, I bet.
Probably.
for like 20 years now.
The only part of it that bothers me is when like the Holocaust Museum and Arlington National Cemetery and stuff have to issue statements that are like, please stop just like swarming our establishments looking for Pokemon. Like, that's not what this is for.
Yeah, that's clearly the result of this game just being a raw data dump from Ingress. Was that the name of the? It would be nice if they would pick some of those out and then put actual outdoor spaces that don't have civic architecture into the game. Because I think right now, if you live in super rural areas or if you just go like out into the middle of nowhere, there's not any Pokemon, which is too bad.
Yeah.
I want people, Nick, to go and find, like, I'm sick of people finding bodies sort of in, in urban areas. I want people to go find the deep bodies and maybe become bodies out in the middle of the woods.
More like weirder killed bodies out in rural areas.
I want
sparser but more interesting.
True Detective Season 3 is two kids.
Gothic murders.
Two kids playing Pokemon Go out into the woods and find some weird strings with like, dream catchers spinning on them and sort of like hipstery antler shit. And then
have you guys seen that cool Pokestop?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Or like the legendary Pokestop that all the kids talk about that everyone just that doesn't exist.
The one that I really do enjoy is that the White House is a gym. So there's apparently like a battle in Washington D.C. for who controls the White House.
Right.
I enjoy that quite a lot. Like really early on,
you don't have to get inside the White House.
No, you can do it from outside. Really early on, I think.
God, I'm sure the secret.
Oh yeah, they're pleased.
Yeah.
You don't have to go inside. Like you could just the tourist accessible area is within proximity to do battle over that. Although people initially obviously joked that like the Blastoise or whatever it was that showed up was clearly Obama's. That like he was just like.
Right.
But there was an article on Kotaku about just the battle amongst DC people for the White House Poke Gym, and I like that a lot. You don't have to go inside. You don't. It would be good if it was only accessible on the tour. I'd be fine with that. This is not speculation that we usually bother with, but what do you guys think? The time frame on like right now we're like it's out trafficking more active users than Twitter, more traffic than porn sites.
Oh yeah,
I give it about a month.
The fad element
is just the Fallout Shelter curve.
But I think this game will retain a large, robust audience for a long time because even the developer Niantic's previous sort of iteration of this Ingress still has like an active user community, and that was a game that had no kind of brand awareness or marketing support of this type behind it.
With a bump this big at the start, it's going to have a large community forever. It's just not going to be in the zeitgeist the way that it is right now.
Right.
You're not going to watch a delivery man walk by and you think he's scanning a package, but he's actually playing Pokemon, which is what happened to me yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you'll get the people who would normally play this kind of game continuing to play it, and then the people who just, I remember Pokemon, and then they go, this is the fun new app, and then they're trying it out right now and feeling like part of the thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if it has a curve similar to something like Foursquare. Because it's very.
I said Words with Friends earlier in the week, but yeah, something like that.
Foursquare,
it is very much Foursquare already.
That's what I mean. It's got that same you're collecting stuff by going to unique different places.
You become the mayor of your favorite coffee shop by
exactly. And some people have speculated, and I wouldn't be shocked if at all if this were true, that this game may eventually look to sort of partner with commercial businesses to incentivize foot traffic.
Oh man, if they get like a Yelp style ad team that's like, well, if you want our Pokestop package, it's this. Yeah. If you want our gym package,
exactly. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because there are already businesses that are literally doing that. There are already business.
Yeah.
Like, it's common now now as though this is going to going on for longer than like a week. But it's
steel and glass skyscrapers, Pokestops.
It's common for local businesses to put down lures at their businesses, just like spend the in-game currency and just refresh them when needed, and then foot traffic just pours in. And obviously that level of just instant like gravitational pull will no longer obviously nothing is going to be able to sustain like spending $2 on a fake thing and like dozens and dozens and dozens of people just instantly streaming into your store. Like that's not going to continue, but I think there will be probably still a robust user base for a long time.
Sweet. Well, Pokemon Go. Also, you could take wacky pictures of the Pokemon near you. Anyway, you want to talk about Inside?
Oh, yeah. The new Playdead game. Nick, have you played any of this game?
I haven't.
Jake, I know you've played the whole thing.
I beated it.
Quite a thing. I also have. I also did that.
I did not complete Limbo. I got... so this is by Playdead, which is the team that made Limbo. This is the only game they've made since Limbo. This has been in development for 7 years, outrageously long period of time.
And it seems very similar to it, and is, I think.
Yes, a lot of the underpinnings of this game, I think, actually share not only a philosophy, but probably it seems like even a code base, maybe, or at least underlying philosophy with Limbo. Like the way that, much like Limbo, this game is a side scroller that moves a very linear side scroller where you play as a character, like just as a small boy, and you have to solve kind of physics-based adventure game puzzles almost to get through the
and
world.
some logic.
And some logic
stuff,
puzzles,
yeah. Also, quick note, there may be spoilers in this discussion, but if we start talking about the ending of the game or sort of heavy spoiler stuff, we'll
tag
announce that, and then we'll give you a time you can skip to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
so in its similarities to Limbo, again, this like 2D side-scrolling, puzzly physics thing, platformer. I had to get over a fair degree of resistance because of the similar. I started it, and it starts similarly, where it's just there's no context given, there's no premise that is explicitly stated. You just start running to the right, and you just, as a video game player, you intuitively understand that's what you do. And like if you have played Limbo, you can sort of already start to pick up on, these are going to be the dangerous things, and you can get through a lot of the initial challenges without much trial and error because you already sort of know the score. But that similarity actually was a huge stumbling point for me. People who have listened to this podcast for a long time maybe have heard me talk about my resistance to kind of a certain kind of sequel. And it's not like any kind of ironclad rule. And sometimes there are cases where I just don't feel that way. And sometimes there are cases where I just really do. And this was a case where it was really difficult for me to push past that sensation of I've done this before. I've done this. What is the point of me doing this again? It's like the exact same formula. But then once I did push past that, it is so much more within that very specific formula, which it doesn't really ever shed. It is like about as additionally ambitious as I think you could want or ask for.
Yeah, I agree.
Out of that formula to a degree that's really impressive and did override my initial reservations.
I also
for sure.
found, maybe an hour into that game, I was feeling like I was stuck in place as far as just the game doing new things. But I think on the whole, it felt like also even within the puzzle platforming formula that they have from Limbo to Inside, I feel like Inside was less grating to me, even though I
agree.
Even just
it's a more expert thing on all axes.
The first 15 minutes of Inside is also some of the most best of this style of game that I've played in decades. Like what it actually reminds me of more than Limbo is Eric Chahi games. Like it totally reminds me of Out of This World / Another World, or of that publisher's spiritual successor Flashback, where Limbo opens with a scenario that I actually really don't like and kind of put me off it, where that giant spider is chasing you and you have to sort of even within the first few screens of Limbo, I feel like you have to backtrack and sort of wander the same space over and over to deal with obstacles, whereas Inside, the feeling of the momentum that you get from platforming, they built that into the puzzle design really successfully a lot of times. A lot of the best moments in Inside come from you feeling like your character is on fire and the wheels are coming off. As you're even though I don't think there's a lot of fine-tuned platforming to it, just using the momentum and sort of using the very simple climbing and lever throwing stuff to barely escape death as this incredibly realized that whole chase sequence with the guys in the vans and the dogs and stuff at the beginning was.
Yeah, I agree. It was that's what got me over my initial reservation, was just the completely fully realized vision of that section of which never lets up. And so my initial reservation to the similarity of the game to Limbo gave way to a different reservation that speaks to the quality of the game, which was that it is so relentless and so goddamn stressful and creepy and just completely tense that I actually found it really difficult to play. And I don't think this is not a criticism of the game, and this is also not something that I imagine everyone has. For whatever reason, this game just really pushed my nerve buttons, like in a to a fucking high degree.
It was
man, it felt taxing to my health.
The frustration to me that I feel when I can't solve an adventure game puzzle, but I know there's a solution, and the frustration of knowing that I can technically beat a Super Meat Boy level, but I'm incapable of doing it, smashed into each other with the like repeated assault of a scary thing from a survival horror game, all combined into the like. You have to solve many of this game's best moments. You have to basically have all of those anxiety inducers on top of each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of putting it.
I eventually got into that, and it's why I beat the game in one sitting. But yeah, it like there was again like my graph with that game. The middle of it was also just like me as just a ruined person, because all of the things that cause me anxiety in video games were basically happening on the same like fixed screen at once. That's also really impressive.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys a question about games like this generally, and
yes.
Nick, I think this like doesn't require having played this exact one. So the story of this game is weird, right? Like it's an implied story, and I think it's highly up to interpretation. And if we want, we can talk about it in a spoiler section a little later. And it may bear answers to the question I'm going to ask, but I want to ask a broader question about games like this without regard to this, including this one, but not exclusive to this one, which is what the hell is the story these games are telling? And I don't mean like the literal plot event story. I mean like, what are they depicting? When you have a character in a game like this who goes endlessly from left to right, but it's intended to, but it's clearly telling these very specific like emotional moments. It's not like Mario where it's overtly and very intentionally, basically a fairy tale, right? Like a complete, just surreal fantasy. This is a game where it's a kid who looks and moves like an actual kid who is like, it's same as in Limbo, is like brutally murdered in lots of ways all the time. But when you fail, it just starts you over and you do it again. And there are lots of games that work like this, and they're not just side-scrolling games. The games I'm talking about are the ones where to do it right, Jake, as you say, you have to like execute on this high degree of platforming and timing, but also do things that if you were doing them the first time through would be very unintuitive, right? So there are puzzles in this game where it's like, I died the first time I encountered it because I had no way to know that when I pressed the button, like, I don't know, a 10-ton anvil would fall on my head. And now I have to, I mean, that doesn't happen, but like, and now many things like it do, though. And I have to, like, do these 4 things to prime it so that when I do press the button, it actually creates. So are these games telling the story of basically like the fucking Mission Impossible guy? Like Tom Cruise by like the 4th Mission Impossible movie where he's just literally Superman. Like he just knows everything and is perfect and does. I think
these games have to use death as a way that a non-game story would just use like injury or other impediment. Like I think if this was a really like dark kid's story, and you had a narrator reading it to someone else, I think every time that kid gets crushed by something, what would probably end up happening is something that was important to him was destroyed, or he like got scraped up really bad and had to limp around. But you can't have a character like in a game like this. You can't have your failure reduce the physical agency of the character, or you'd have to suddenly double the design requirements of the game, where it's like this is the part where the kid optionally has a broken leg or optionally his arm hurts. You can't put that in the game, so they just kill you over and over again. Weirdly, like if I play Half-Life, which is it's an unbroken line first-person game.
Yeah.
By the end of it, I don't think of the deaths as part of Gordon Freeman's story, but in Limbo or Inside, maybe because of the sort of abstract distance. And I don't know, though. Like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft just gets wrecked, the new Tomb Raider games, but I don't read those as canon the way that I do in this game. For some reason, like watching the kid in Limbo or the kid in Inside die over and over again, by the time I get to the end, I feel like I guided you through all these things, and it was at the cost of all of those things that happened. And even though they're not, like, they don't seem like they're technically inside the brain of that kid, it still feels like they are to me for some reason. When I get to the end, in my mind, I'm like, well, if I had to like put my thoughts on it materially, it's that somewhere in the shadow of the back of that kid's brain, all of those other things do exist, even if they're not conscious thoughts in him. I don't think the game is stating that explicitly at all, but that's like the emotional feeling that I get when I get to the end of it, is that the journey for this kid is super harrowing, and even if he doesn't entirely understand why, I do. And that's like, I don't expect other people to have that reading.
No, that's fair. I think that's a fair thing. My takeaway from it was similar to that, but a little bit different, and which was that the only way to communicate how terrifying the actual non-death experiences in this game are to the kid, the only way for me to feel that is to constantly put the kid in such great danger that I'm always afraid that I'm just going to instantly die at any second.
Right.
Because the game tells me that I can.
The game's also full of near misses where the only way to win, to get through an area is to be within an inch of death, which I think also makes the actual deaths not feel too out of control to me. But
yeah.
I want to quickly talk about the aesthetic of this game before we get into spoilers, because I think this game is incredibly beautiful and instills. Sometimes when Inside was in development, I was worried that it was going to end up looking simplistic or maybe undercooked or something, but this game is one of the nicest looking games that I've really played ever. Limbo, when it came out, I feel like Limbo was super striking for its time and was just like mind-blowing in a lot of ways, but I think and Limbo spawned a ton of copies. Like the look of indie platformer where the foreground is a black silhouette and then there's sort of atmospheric effects in the foreground and background just became like a subgenre for a while. And I wonder if with this game, Playdead was sort of trying to say, okay, we're going to make a thing that you just can't copy. We're going to spend 7 years making an aesthetic that you just can't rip. Like, I think there's no shortcut to the look of Inside because they just built everything. Like, everything in this game is just, like, every time the camera pans to a new shot, it looks like a beautifully composed concept painting from any other video game, except that then your character runs through it. Like, I also weirdly think that Inside owes an aesthetic debt to Valve in a lot of ways, which I feel like I'm the guy who compares every single goddamn thing to a Valve game, so I'm sorry, but in this case, I think that it is more justified than maybe it has been in the past. Like, I think this weirdly seems like an offshoot of Team Fortress 2 to me.
Everything seems like an offshoot.
Okay, let me get into this. Some things that Team Fortress 2 brought to the table that, I mean, have shown up everywhere. Obviously, like sort of the cartoony, like how do we make Pixar-style game characters? That's not in this game, but like that's the thing that often gets talked about. Like the soldier ended up basically spawning a zillion things, but the way that Team Fortress 2 introduced hand painted textures in 3D space, hit with really flat lighting with sort of either real or simulated Fong shading, like the not super shiny look, with and like Portal 2 feels like it was actually a jump off of Half-Life 2, or excuse me, Jesus. Portal 2 feels like it was a jump off of Team Fortress 2 as much as it was a jump off of Portal 1. Like Portal 2 has the architecture of the Portal games, but it's very much the next iteration of all the textures are hand painted. There is like very soft shadowing and then these really high contrast bursts of super saturated sunlight. It was weird playing Inside and seeing that aesthetic be like brought to bear on a game where the camera is in a fixed position and you can just use those elements to go nuts. But then also Inside has you running through like derelict mid-century farmhouses, desecrated Eastern European cities where you're being chased by anonymous people and drones, and weird mid-century hyper-futuristic jet set test chambers. Like, it feels like what you're actually running, and also you're running through the wilderness, then you have to stop, solve a crazy physics puzzle, and then run into the next room.
True.
Sometimes you're actually even in a numbered glassed-in room
true,
where you're manipulating a notable physics device. Like, it just feels like Inside Kid was actually just running through the metaverse of Valve software as seen through the eyes of
the extended Half-Life universe anyway.
Yeah. Is Portal in the extended Half-Life universe? I guess it is.
Absolutely it is.
But there also TF2 felt like it was also totally present in some of that stuff. But yeah, as seen through the eyes of a super European aesthetic indie platforming team.
Right.
But a lot of the just world rendering techniques felt like they would not be in this game, even though it's so divorced from TF2.
Even mid-century sort of office interiors, as seen in Portal 2.
Yeah. It just it feels like one could make a really weird Little Big Planet demake of some stuff from inside as the most insane kit bashed Valve mod, including a lot of the sort of lighting and texturing techniques that Valve dropped on the world with TF2 that feel like that's just I don't know. It's very strange. I was talking with our animator James Benson about this a lot today, and it stuck out to me pretty hardcore.
That's cool.
Anyway, also this game is just beautiful. I don't know.
It is. It's very beautiful.
It's aesthetic and technically it's crazy. Going underwater in this game is looks unlike anything I've ever seen as far as underwater stuff looks, but it's really good. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's very pretty and it's totally just a rip-off of everything Valve's ever made.
Was that the spoiler, or
yeah? No, I don't know. You want to get into a spoiler zone?
Yeah, we should spoiler. So we'll have to figure out how long this is going to go, but we'll plug that back in. So if you want to skip story spoilers from Inside, you should skip to.
Oh, actually,
yeah.
Before we tell people this, Inside has been almost exclusively talked about as an Xbox One game, but it's worth pointing out if you haven't been paying a ton of attention to it because of that, it is on Steam right now as well. So if you have a computer, you can also play this game. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so if you don't want to be spoiled because you're off playing it on Steam or your Xbox,
skip to 46 minutes and 30 seconds in this podcast, and we should be done by then. Okay, so this game...
So, Nick, at the end of this thing...
Okay.
Man, you did not give people a lot of time to fast forward.
Oh, sorry. You could bleep that part if you want.
I was going to ease into this a little bit more.
You can bleep that if you want. I found the opening half hour and the final half hour of this game to easily be the best parts of this game.
I agree.
You turn into a weird, limb homunculus. The pieces of this game, even though, when I think of now, I guess, Playdead games, because there are two, when I think of them as games where you're alone, but the parts in Inside that were the most striking and also where the team felt like it was the most alive and doing the most interesting stuff is when there were other human beings who were not weird like zombies or weren't limb homunculus, but were just other living, breathing people in the world who were aware of the presence of you. Mm-hmm. I thought all that stuff was just it felt different than I had ever experienced because the moments like the chase sequence at the beginning where it feels like you've broken out of whatever and you're being hunted by all those guys in vans, and then at the end when you're inside that science facility, they feel like Flashback or Out of This World, but I've never had a game like this where I feel like I'm actually inside of a living world full of a bunch of other autonomous people and a limb homunculus. I don't know. But I mean, also, obviously, yeah.
So, Nick, what happens in this game, essentially, is you start off being pursued by, weird masked men. Yeah, and then you, over, like an hour, basically, you infiltrate some kind of weird testing facility and increasingly uncover some kind of strange, basically like zombie mind control technology that is used to allow one person to control the sort of just
limb homunculus.
Yeah, like a limb homunculus.
Underclass human beings. It's all like miners and construction workers. And I mean,
a lot of the puzzles
implied even maybe office workers and stuff. But
right. A lot of the puzzles you solve them by putting on this weird mind control helmet and then guiding, in some cases, up to dozens of these sort of shambling bodies at your will. And just the deeper you get into this facility, the more weird experimental shit you uncover, including water whose gravity points up instead of down, and just all kinds of crazy shit. And then the conclusion of this game is that you basically get to the heart of this facility in this massive tank that with this windowed tank that people are just faces glued to it, and inside there's just this huge writhing mass of just human body parts and gross like Akira shit and like
weird like limb homunculus
with like big electrodes plugged into it, and presumably this is some kind of like mega controller, you know, that is like
the feeling of the reveal of that stuff over the end of that game is amazing, because you are in what seem like these sort of, you're going through what do feel like a series of Portal-esque test chambers, almost like to get out of this lab you have to sort of roll through it, including like little bright windowed rooms with guys on computers in the background. But the scientists that are sort of filtered throughout this area eventually also start running right faster than you, and you don't know if they're running away from something or if they're reacting to your presence. But then it becomes apparent that they're all going to crowd around this geodesic dome that you can't see into, but they can. That the feeling of the whole world reacting like that, it actually felt like almost Spielbergian to me.
It did. I was going to say it felt very Spielberg.
The most notable moment in that whole thing is when I thought the game ended, or was about to end.
What you're talking about.
You get to this point where you get to the dome that they're all looking into, and you run out of room to move right anymore because you've hit the edge of the dome, and one of the scientists who's looking up against the glass, who you're next to, just kind of looks at you and is like, what's this kid? And you're not being pursued anymore because whatever's inside of the glass is so much more shocking to these people than you, who presumably them or their employer have been trying to murder the entire game. And that moment, it was like, and then you've got to
you can't see what's in it, which was an amazing.
Yeah, you can't see what's in it. Your
character can see what's in it, but you, the player, cannot.
Right. Yeah, and the kid sort of seems not really interested in it because he's a platforming protagonist. And then you've got to do a bunch of platforming garbage that leads you inside that tank. You free the weird, massive bodies, but in the process, you end up getting pulled into it. And then the final act of the game, again, it's the weird, like Half-Life 2.
It's like Half-Life 2 it's like Half-Life 2 Gravity Gun
meets
finale
Gish.
meets Akira.
Yeah.
You just have this like writhing blob thing crashing through. You're essentially just busting out of the facility as crazy flesh blob. Busting through walls and like solving simpler versions
and you
of
can sort
puzzles
of like
you've solved before.
Squish yourself up like a weird gelatinous mass to reach higher things, and like this again, when I was talking about the aesthetic of this game being like, okay, everyone else thought they could copy Limbo, you actually can't copy us. The way that this massive limbs works is a thing that I've never seen in a game from a technical standpoint.
Like animation-wise.
Like it was already impressive when you're the little kid and like you'll run up against a wall and he'll put his hands up and hold the wall, and sort of like the way that he'll interact with objects seems like any way that you grab onto an object, the character just does it seamlessly. Then they're pulling that off with like 6 pairs of legs and unknown numbers of pairs of hands. Like there's a part where you're picking up this huge wooden plank, or like a wooden.
That part was insane.
It's like a railroad tie or something, where it's like a foot and a half square by like 6, 8, 12 feet long, like a huge thing that one person could never lift. But then you press the grab button that would make the kid pick up a regular object, and then you, as you're holding it, you can use the analog stick to sort of change their grip on it, and all these hands sort of pass it around between themselves, or like you can sort of naturally hoist it straight up above you, like to reach high objects and poke at stuff. You can swing it around, but it's all just like these just like masses of hands like just passing it around to themselves as you're also controlling this gelatinous platforming blob made out of a bunch of limbs. It's just like, okay, no one else is ever going to try this because it seems basically impossible given how like, you know, it's already impressive enough to see like Nathan Drake or the Assassin's Creed guy like touch a wall occasionally, but this was just like eat shit everyone else. It was the weirdest,
it's crazy.
Weirdest feeling.
I only saw one credited animator on this game. Also, I mean, they must have just spent forever making all this stuff good, because I was already incredibly impressed just by the way any animation just seamlessly blends into any other thing you interrupt it with or like start doing. I mean, it just, everything feels taken into account. Like when you approach a puzzle from a different direction, even if you're doing the wrong thing, it still has its own like proper version of the animation where your character like adjusts his weight slightly differently, and like just it feels like they thought of, you know, getting killed. I mean, right from the beginning of the game, there's when you get like murdered, if you were running left versus running right, you know, versus like how far were you through the screen when it happened, like the guy will strangle you a different way. Like it's crazy. It's crazy how just totally exhaustive the animation and interaction stuff is in this game. Yeah. Also, it just ends with the most bonkers, insane, like unpredictable, fucked up thing. So
what did you think about the very, very end of this? Nick, at the end of this thing, you turn into a weird, like, limb homunculus.
Yeah, you turn into a weird flesh homunculus, but the very end, you crash out of the facility and, like, sort of barrel down a mountainside and then come to rest on, I guess, the seashore.
And then die.
And
then just,
I guess, I mean,
it seems like
the
blob seems to just...
The blob
it just holds on that shot for the entire credits, and then it's over.
Did you notice that hill that you rolled down, there's a scale model of it that you also crashed through inside of the game earlier? So like
and there's a light beam shining on the point at which you eventually come to rest.
Yeah, that's so...
Like there's like a little scale model that is like predicting the conclusion of the game. Yeah, who the fuck knows what that means? Did you see the secret ending to this game?
Yeah, I didn't complete it.
I didn't either.
I watched it. It
would have been impossible.
There's these little sort of like they almost look like sea mines that you find throughout the game. That just are sort of like spiky balls that have lights coming off of them. And if you find them, the kid just mysteriously pulls a switch out of them and they turn off.
Yeah, I found like 5 of those, but I guess there were like 13.
Yeah, if you find all of them, there's a giant one that you can go inside that then reveals a bunch of other content that I think you have to play only on a subsequent playthrough that you can.
You can just reload a checkpoint.
Okay, yeah. But there's this interconnected web of stuff that reveals a secret additional ending that takes place way earlier in the game if you already like that is the macro version of what you were describing, Chris, of like you have to die over and over again to figure out how the game actually works, including this weird metagame ending. The only way that you can solve it is if you've gotten to the end, having completed all these alternative objectives and then found the secret room that contains a secret ending, but then noticed that there's a puzzle in it that requires you to listen to what the music does in a completely different part of the game. And if you do all these things correctly, you then find a secret room which seems to have like the ultimate mind control device in it. And when you unplug it, your player protagonist dies, or he crumbles.
Like slumps over.
He slumps over the same way that the sort of like worker guys slump over, which I guess.
So I feel like when you combine that ending with the sort of normal ending of the game, it suggests some kind of specific details of this are difficult to know with a game that doesn't like explicitly give you very much information. But what seems to suggest to me is either this like big ball thing, this crazy writhing mass,
limb homunculus,
is controlling anything from everything in the world down to like, or most sentient beings in the world down to like just this kid. It is somehow like constructing the plan of its own like escape, or of the dissolution of this system that is controlling this all, or alternatively you are controlling the kid the same way the kid controls the zombies when he puts the helmet on. Like the relationship of the player to the character is just one more like reverse inception out from like all the successive controlling going on in this game. Because one of the things you can do in the game as a kid, you can put the helmet on, then you're controlling a zombie. But then you can have one of those zombies put a helmet on, and then it in turn is controlling another zombie. So there's like 3 layers right there. I think the game is suggesting that the player relationship is yet another layer of that, and possibly the big crazy blob thing,
homunculus,
is like
it's like orthogonally comes in. Yeah,
or either orthogonally comes in, or like in the fiction is suggested that it is controlling you, the player, to create all of the circumstances for like the conclusion of the game.
So the blob is would you kindlying you through this thing, basically.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That seems like one plausible interpretation. One of the reasons I think it makes sense to stretch it back that far is because it does sort of it does not directly, but sort of it does from a sideways way kind of address this question of like what does it mean to die all the time, because it's positioning the entire game construction as like another kind of abstracted control layer of this whole thing. It also, like, one of the reasons it seems as though possibly the weird body blob thing, limb homunculus, is controlling things on a grand scale. That would suggest why the scale model exists.
It was planning its escape or something.
Yeah.
So just this is just a question. Because I haven't played the game. But like,
is this on Xbox?
Is this a PC game? Is the implication that there have been or are other kids that are going through the same trial?
Not really. You don't see any like dead people of a child's size or anything like that. No.
Presumably something created that blob that was going through a similar kind of run here or something. You know what I mean?
Well, the blob is presumably the ultimate creation of this facility that you're inside.
But we don't know if it somehow created itself or you don't really know because
unclear.
I was wondering early on, like, are all kids what these start as? Because you're the only kid you see for a while, but then later on in the game you see a scientist type character has what looks like his or her kid next to them.
Oh, that's true.
So
and
my
I guess
question
there also
was,
is another. So like, oh, sorry, what
is the death thing? Just kind of implying that like you're just now you're test subject number like 13
it could very well be that
this
is like by the time you complete the game, there's like 300 of these kids who've gone through. I don't know. It also occurs to me that there is, Jake, you're right. There is like the scientist kid, but then there's also another really important kid in the game, which was the fucking most terror-inducing part of the entire game for me.
Underwater, I guess,
there's
girl?
like this underwater, sort of like, I guess little girl with like huge long flowing hair that they rendered beautifully in the water. It sort of swims around in the water the way long hair does, and that character was to me by far the most like tense enemy encounter in the game because she just like suffocates you
whenever
underwater,
she sees you, she just swims
makes
after
me
you.
Feel like I'm suffocating.
Like she swims 10% faster than you or something. So you always have to like sort of kite her somewhere weird, then dive in and complete the puzzle, but again, then get out right before you die.
Yeah.
Even if you're in a submersible device, she'll swim up to it and then press against the glass until it slowly cracks, and then the water goes in and all the lights on the console light up, and then you are strangled to death inside of
what?
If you're in the submarine.
Oh, I thought you meant like your video game console.
No. Oh, all the lights on your console light up.
Your Xbox Red rings. If you die in the game, your console dies for real. Video games. Spoiler section ends here. Thank you for your patience.
I feel like we're getting to the end of this, but actually, James Benson, who's an animator at Campo Santo, wrote a bunch of stuff in our Slack that I think is kind of interesting. In Uncharted, it feels like they deliberately communicate that death was the result of playing wrong and isn't canon by having it be the lowest fidelity part of the whole production. You just ragdoll over a couple frames and it looks absolutely terrible every time. The implication is that Nathan Drake is so competent and lucky that these fail states really shouldn't exist, but we had to put them in so people think it's a real game. Potentially, actually, if you whatever. Inside treats death brilliantly. First of all, each one gives you new art and animation states to enjoy watching, and they do so much to get across exactly why you don't want to be caught by the monsters and machines. Inside becomes incredibly tense, and you really feel like the boy is vulnerable, and him being able to die is a big part of that. Nathan Drake really isn't meant to ever fail, and making him fall asleep with grayscale screen wipe feels like it's going completely against the game's core goal, which is to empower you while throwing out snappy jokes. I don't know. I think I don't know how to elaborate on that exactly because I don't. Fuck. Sorry. I think the fact that he points out that Uncharted, just the way the deaths are throwaway and the way that they are absolutely not in this game is a really good contrasting point to get at why I feel like death in this game has meaning for me and feels like it's a part of the story in a way that maybe it doesn't as much for you or like to the conversation
No, I
we were
wasn't
having
saying
earlier.
it does. I was trying to figure out what it like.
I guess in an Uncharted game, it feels like the death is present and frequent and is totally thrown away, but they have to still keep it in line with the same. You as Nathan Drake jump off a cliff, then it just does go to black and he ragdolls and it cuts away. Or you have a Tomb Raider game where you jump off a cliff and then you are exquisitely shown being impaled on some spikes, and then it goes away. And Inside aesthetically seems like it probably has a similar death budget to something like Tomb Raider, but it feels like there's more meat inside of those scenes. And I guess you're sort of saying to what end still.
Yeah, well, not really to what end. I know what the end is. The end is like the player experience and what you're trying to coax out of the player, which, as James says in this case, is to like really communicate the danger and the like stakes involved. And in Tomb Raider, I think what they said was they were trying to like communicate the fact that game was telling the story about her. That was like a prequel game, right? I mean, it was about like her sort of rise to, like, if there is also a game called Rise of the Tomb Raider, but about her.
It wasn't about her rise, Chris. It was about her whatever.
They were trying to like tell a story.
It was about how
someone
she was
growing
the Tomb Raider,
right?
And whether or not like people agree that was successful, like I didn't play that one, so I don't really have a strong opinion about it. But like I know what the end is, but that still doesn't really explain like what on a just more like prosaic level. what is this actually depicting when you're depicting a story in which someone dying is like depicted with such a high degree of detail and like clearly intended to like appear realistic and like a thing that happened in this story, but it doesn't actually happen in the story. It's just a weird conflict that it is odd to me. I don't want to keep talking about it because I've just said that same thing like 4 times, but yeah.
I almost have something else to say, but I can't put it to words well enough, so maybe we'll play another game where there's a bunch of weird death stuff that happens in it and we can talk about it again.
All right. Anyway, I like this game a lot. I hope my like weird musings didn't obscure that fact, because everything this game actually does, I think, is really, really crazily effective. So I liked it. I thought it was really good.
Me too.
You guys want to take a break?
Sure.
Video games. This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by NatureBox. NatureBox sends delicious snacks of all kinds, well over 100 snacks, wow. including vegan, non-GMO options, all kinds of different snack preferences available to you. They will send your selections to your home or office. Free shipping anywhere in the United States. Super easy. They're delicious. Nick, I know you have consumed many a NatureBox in your time. How recently have you gotten a NatureBox?
I had it being delivered to the office that I was working in, and I need to change that and send it to my house.
Right. Yeah. So
because I'm no longer working there. But yeah,
you should go to their website again now, because they have it since you last heard about NatureBox on this podcast. It is gone bananas. It is gone.
Only
I mean,
bananas.
probably some kind of banana flavored thing also in there. I don't know, but there's like all kinds of stuff now. There's like 7 different popcorns and like way more kinds of dried fruit and like miniature little like single serving meals, like mac and cheese and like a bean and pasta thing and cereals and granola. There's like beef jerky in here now. They have like every category and type of snack now. Yeah. So if you go to naturebox.com/thumbs, you can get 2 free snacks with shipping included. So go to naturebox.com/thumbs, peruse this ridiculous list of snacks. I was blown away, as some might say, by the wealth of options of all types. So again, that's naturebox.com/thumbs. Get your 2 free snacks.
Get them.
Yeah, you get them, Nick Brecken.
Video games. Are we back?
Oh, I think we are back.
Oh.
It's time for chicken news and video game news.
What?
Okay.
So Nick apparently has not heard.
I don't know what's going on.
This is maybe not the best news. This is the video game news we deserve. I think
it just depends whether your consideration of what makes good news is like news as entertainment or news as actual reality. Yeah. And if it's the former, this is the best news.
This is the best news. So, Splash Damage, the UK game studio behind Brink, they worked on Gears of War 4. They worked on, I think, did you say one of the BioShocks?
No, that's a different studio. That is
sorry. Yeah. No, sorry. Anyway, Brink, Gears of War 4. They also did the Enemy Territory games.
Yeah.
They made a recent game called Dirty Bomb.
Yes. They have been bought, the studio has been bought by Leyou, a Chinese supplier of chicken meat.
Oh, no.
This is just like infinite jest. This is like David Foster Wallace world now. The craziest thing about this news is that I was like, well, that's hilarious. What the hell? Turns out they already also own Digital Extremes.
Oh, man.
The Canadian,
oh, wow. They're just slowly acquiring
studio. Yeah.
Any studio that's made like a Quake game. A Quake engine game.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
Yeah.
Leyou said in 2015, when it only owned a little bit of this I'm quoting this from an article on Polygon.
When it only owned Digital Extremes.
They only owned a portion of Digital Extremes even at this point. They said approximately 80% of our revenue was generated from the poultry business, while 70% of our gross profit was generated from the video game business. So, chicken will be around forever, but it's not a growth industry, whereas video games...
It's important to diversify.
On the move. Chris also noticed, I believe that Leyou is the supplier of chicken to KFC.
Yeah.
Or one of the major suppliers of chicken to KFC, which is so delicious because KFC...
very delicious.
Oh, I mean, I don't find KFC delicious. The biscuits are all right. But what I find delicious about it is that KFC is a Yum brand KFC is KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, A&W Root Beer, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, whatever supplier. So
wait, what? What? What do
KFC,
you mean?
Pepsi is either a parent company or strongly affiliated with Yum Brands.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You'll only ever find.
Yum Brands is...
Please, Chris, we're talking about. KFC often shares a restaurant floor space with the purveyor of the Doritos Cool Ranch or Nacho Cheese Taco Loco or whatever.
That I know, but I didn't know that Pepsi.
Oh, that's
owned
because
it.
Doritos is also good buds with Taco Bell, KFC, and Pepsi. This is like we're in major cities right here.
Remember where we're living in the brand war era.
Let's
I mean,
let's talk about the world where the company that makes Gears of War multiplayer is also now owned by the company that supplies the chicken to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, what?
Sorry,
also,
Nick
how
was
many of
having
these
a
places are
revelation.
fucking Pokestops? Like,
Jake, have you seen? Do you know of the game Pepsi Man?
no.
Man.
I'm sure I've come across Pepsi Man but in my travels.
In the most recent Games Done Quick speedrun convention, somebody ran Pepsi Man, and I really want you to watch this. But also, Pepsi Man is incredible. Pepsi Man was a game. It was a PS1 game made for. There you go.
Is this the?
This is the only song in the game. It plays on loop as the game goes on. It's just Pepsi Man. It's someone saying Pepsi Man over and over again.
When did this come out? What platform is it for?
PS1. So just janky looking like.
And what is it exactly? What do you do?
Well, so you play as Pepsi Man, which is just like, this like.
What, Nick?
Just this like weird Pepsi mascot, and it only came out in Japan. And it's oh my god, it's incredible.
Oh, that's why he looks like Ultraman?
Yeah, he looks like Ultraman, and so the premise is just absurd. The first stage of 4, you play in San Francisco, and the premise is that I guess like I don't know, some like plane crash has occurred, and you have to like go deliver Pepsi to the victims of this plane crash.
Oh my god!
The second stage is in New York, and some weird man walks up to you and says like, "Pepsi Man, the city's on fire," and you have to go help everybody.
Do you put out the fire by spraying
it looks
Pepsi
like
on
looks like a Fallout game. Like there's just flames just shooting out of the
my
ground,
God.
and like everybody's burning, and you're just like delivering Pepsi, and then everybody thanks you. It's bizarre, but the best part about it is that there are these like weird FMV sequences with this weird schlubby dude, like just American dude, and like each in between.
I like
each
how you
stage,
know he's American because he's schlubby.
Well, he's a full-on schlubby American, and he just like talks into the camera in between stages and just says like weird phrases like "Pepsi is life," and then drinks a Pepsi. And at the end of the game, he's just surrounded by like 1,000 empty Pepsi cans. Like it's it's just absolute madness. So yeah, watch that.
Have you completed this
watch
game?
that. No, I haven't touched this game. I just watched the speedrun of this guy.
Right. Okay,
and also a man dressed up as Pepsi Man for that speedrun, which was really good.
Oh my god!
Just a full like lycra suit.
Yeah.
With just yeah. It's
wow.
it's well worth
so
watching.
Pepsi
Jake
Man
needs to watch
rebooted.
that. Yeah.
Coming soon from Splash Damage. Leyou
that was my
property.
hope. That's why I brought it up. Is that I'm hoping
available
they're
only at the combination
Pepsi Man,
KFC, Taco Bell.
Yeah, I think that Yum Brands is no longer a subsidiary of Pepsi Co., but they're still very closely related. Whatever. They've got the inside channel to now be supplying the video games, which you get the XP from your Pepsi, and also the chicken, which comes with the Pepsi. It's all just like, the noose is tightening, Chris.
Man. What a strange... Can you imagine being an employee of Splash Damage on the day that is announced? I mean, I
think you just all go out for KFC at lunch. I don't know what else can you do.
Man.
Yeah.
Weird world.
It is.
So before we do reader mail, I guess are we done with this? I guess we're.
I guess that's all.
Yeah.
That's it.
But before we do reader mail, Nick, I want you to talk about Dark Souls because you've had some like outrageous, I think, experiences since we last recorded this podcast.
It's been an up and down roller coaster.
Yeah.
Trying to close this game out. Like the stream, I guess 2 streams ago, I completely ate shit for like 5 straight hours.
That was your lowest moment ever.
That was infuriating.
You essentially like battled one boss for hours and hours and hours on end.
Yeah.
You eventually left the stream a broken man.
It was
the
pretty
boss undefeated.
Gross. It was a disgusting couple of hours. And immediately the next day, had just a normal experience playing that game and killed 2 bosses. The last stream, I actually ended the game.
You beat the final boss,
which is not the real boss.
Oh,
it was hard, but I'm saving the guy that was kind of terrorizing me for the final.
What is the other
finale?
One?
Oh, the Nameless King.
Nameless King. Oh, that's the one that you.
That's the one that I was just railing against. No, I'm saving him.
So that's the grudge match.
Oh yeah, that's the full-on fight night. That's whenever we can organize a stream, I'll save that guy.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, ugh.
Yeah, if you haven't been keeping up on this, you owe it to and you have any interest in Dark Souls or Nick Brecken, you owe it to yourself to watch these videos on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/idlevideos, or subscribe to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/idlethumbs to watch these as they happen, because they're outrageous.
While I was
amazing shit in these, like,
all right,
including like a heart rate meter that Nick cooked up. Like there is,
I did buy a vitality sensor.
Are way crazier and more entertaining than they may sound by just saying Nick fought a boss. Like they're very good. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I guess I won't spoil that moment. Maybe I'll highlight that moment. Yeah. Anyway.
Also a yodeling pickle that I said.
That yodeling pickle. God damn that pickle. That yodel is now stuck in my head. Like that, and I've got every up and down phrase just perfectly rendered in my brain all the time. Yodelay hee hee, yodelay hoo hoo, yodelay hee 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 hoo, yodelay hee hoo. It's stuck in my head for days. Thanks, Chris. What a great gift.
So when I bought Nick some new microphone equipment for the stream, so that he and his girlfriend Janelle could each have a lav mic, I included a special gift.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you just search for bad gift?
I searched for bad gift on Amazon.com.
You found it.
And that was that.
You found the
that
worst.
Was
the worst one.
Oh, I want you guys to know that even though this new Hitman game is new and I'm a different person and I'm older and wiser, I'm still absolutely, utterly helpless shit at Hitman games. That's been all that I've discovered.
Oh, good.
I died a million times in the tutorial of the new Hitman when just being a police officer or a ship worker guy, which are the disguises that you're supposed to, to get into when you're playing that. And then I said, okay, fuck this. I'm going to set off the car alarm on that rich cell phone guy's car and lure him into the back alley and become him, which I did after 15 attempts.
Oh, man.
By throwing a fire extinguisher at his car window enough times that he sort of got mad enough that he tried to get in a fight with me out of the view of the cops, by me sort of he'd be like, who's back there? You. So I finally did it, and I was that guy, and it was the most amazing Hitman experience that I've had ever, because I just walked up the front door and oh, hi there, drug lord guy, we've been waiting for you. It's everyone's buying it. And then since I'd been spending an hour as cops and deck workers, I got up to where my target was, and then I'm oh, I know how to get to you quickly, and I ducked into an engine compartment, and then a mechanic and a cop and a dock worker were you're not one of us, and then I was caught and killed. So one day I will complete a Hitman mission, but also that game's really good. You guys were correct.
Yeah
even though I'm shit at it, even that stupid tutorial mission is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yep. Good game.
Yeah. Also, I like that drug lord guy dresses like the guy who Indiana Jones blows up in the opening of Last Crusade.
So we also streamed Wizard Jam 2016 Part 2. That video is not on YouTube at this point because of technical reasons. We had to figure out how to get that video up in a way that is easy to watch. But it was a really fun stream.
You can find it on Twitch.
It is on Twitch, it's on Twitch right now. There's a highlight of it. Yeah. There's just a portion with weird. One of the games created weird audio that was very unpleasant on the stream side. It sounded fine to us, but for whatever reason,
it was glitching out.
It just sounded
to
really
our audio
crazy,
hardware. Yeah,
on the stream, and so that's still there on Twitch. So we're trying to download the video and clip that part out and upload it to YouTube so that I don't know. There are other challenges.
Computers are
for
involved.
Reasons unpredictable. But anyway, that was a really, really fun stream. It was like more amazing Wizard Jam games were played. So that's you can watch that highlight at twitch.tv/idlethumbs. We're also we unlocked the Sean and Danielle Twitch emotes. Those are great, and we are only I think like 30 subscriptions away from unlocking even more. We have a Steve emote,
including the elusive Steve Gaynor.
Yeah, and some more secret emotes that will remain surprises once unlocked.
I'm thinking of becoming a Far Cry 2 speedrunner.
Oh yeah, that's a challenge Nick has set for himself. That's
we'll
see
how far that goes.
We'll
see how far that goes.
A stupid decision that you're making.
I think it might be.
It might be one of the greatest decisions ever made.
All right. I mean, I support it. Like, I'm heavily in favor of it.
No, but first of all, there's no competition right now. There is literally no competition.
But as soon as you do it, as soon as you set a time, there will be competition, and then you'll become obsessed with not letting them take your
I think
trophy.
Nick's Far Cry 2 speedrunning career would be best if at least occasionally accompanied by acoustic guitar.
Oh, yeah. Clearly.
Okay, so I guess actually here's the counterpoint to the thing I just said, which is that even if you post a world record and then have it immediately taken away from you, you would always have the legacy of having created the Far Cry 2 speedrun community.
That's true.
You would be its forefather.
Also, to qualify for a Games Done Quick event, you don't necessarily have to be the world runner or the world record holder. You just have to be good at it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think.
Oh, so your goal is to actually
listen, I'm climbing the rocky stairs. All right, no, this is like training. It's going to be like day one, Far Cry 2, the road to GDQ.
Oh my God.
My hope is that I'm there. Somebody's on the couch. We're raising money for charity
Where did
and
these take place?
Introducing people to the best game ever.
Chris is there with his guitar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. This is the end goal. Those take place. I think. The one in January takes place in around Dulles Airport in Virginia, and then the summer one I think is in Minneapolis, I believe, or one of those Midwestern kind of zones. Yeah.
Well, I support you in your goal.
Yeah. I want to do it. I probably won't do it. It might happen.
You can at least start an attempt, and we'll probably be entertaining.
I think it'd be funny just to try it. I'm curious.
You have to figure out what the shortest because that's a long fucking game. Like a speed run of that game is not.
So the interesting thing about the way that these go, is that they start out long. The runs are whatever, just kind of running through the actual game. But then as the community gets built, you find more like exploits that allow you to skip tons of content. My hope is to shave it down to something that's reasonable. I think right now the only person who's ever done it did it in 3 hours, which is pretty long. Mm-hmm. So if I can't get lower than that, it's going to be gross.
Yeah, I
don't. That'll be untenable probably, just for my life.
And but if a speedrun game,
yeah. Well, there are some that are pretty long, but
if you can get Far Cry 2 down to if
I can get down to like 40-50 minutes,
if you could even get it down to an hour a map, you'd be
yeah.
Anyway, games discussed. Far Cry 2, and now reader mail.
Yes. All right. So anyway, stay up on twitch.tv/idlethumbs. We'll also obviously announce on this podcast. Oh, also speaking of this, we have a new email newsletter. We sent out our first one a few days ago. If you go to idlethumbs.net, any page on idlethumbs.net, at the bottom in the footer, there's a little subscription box. When we sent out the first one, we just announced some things like the Cold Bloom is back in stock. The Cold Bloom beer koozie foam can insulator with Jeff Goldblum's face on it that we for some reason designed and sell. We also restocked our original T-shirt, the nice white logo on navy blue T-shirt. Is back in our store, and that was in the email newsletter, and just some other stuff about our other podcasts and our streams and everything. It's just, we never really kept up with the blog, and I think didn't really seem like a good format for us. And I think the just occasional email newsletter is a much better way for us to maintain non-podcast communication. So yeah, go to any page on our site, and you can sign up for that if you desire. All right,
which you
obviously do. So let's do some reader mail. Tom Kidd says, I think you need to have Jake do a limited series where he just talks about what it was like to run a Mac back in the days before OS X and Intel. I'm a recent convert to Mac, and it's absolutely fascinating to me to listen to what it was like to work with Macs back when they had a circling the drain market share and a not very straightforward path to game development and porting. All I remember is seeing the occasional kid in high school, usually working for the school newspaper, playing versions of Wolfenstein 3D that didn't quite look right, and telling me how they didn't need Doom because they had this thing called Marathon. We'd never heard of it. I guess there were gaming hipsters back then, too. Also, I remember finagling a port of Quake to run in a window on this guy's Mac next door in my college dorm. It ran in a window, which blew my mind, as at that point, Quake was a DOS-only game that didn't run worth a shit in a Windows 3.1 window. Good times. Tom.
It is true that the Mac version of Wolfenstein 3D was superior because it ran at 640 by 480.
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Interesting.
It is also true that the Mac versions of everything else are worse.
Yeah, I remember that part.
All right. Daniel Simpson says, Dearest Thumbs.
Oh, actually, one thing real quick.
Oh, sure.
Lee Alexander did a series of
yeah.
Let's Plays called Lo-Fi Let's Plays,
Oh, yeah.
including like emulating a bunch of old-ass Mac games and stuff. So check out those, and you could probably find some good old Mac gaming stuff. I'm also not that knowledgeable about old Mac stuff. I was a kid using those computers back then, so I don't know if I would be the best person to do that. But
because you've like accrued far more retroactive information about that than you had at the time.
That's true.
All right. Daniel Simpson writes, Dearest Thumbs, I'm an employee of Indeed.com, whose commercial you played during last week's show, episode 270. I was previously unaware that we are marketing to robots. However, after some thought, I believe it makes sense. Like most websites, a significant portion of Indeed's traffic comes from bots. In fact, I have personally done work on search engine optimization, a task based upon increasing the site's accessibility for our robotic brethren. It would be foolish to ignore such a large demographic, and I'm personally excited that we have chosen to embrace this important and untapped market. I hope I've provided some valuable insight for you. I'd also like to thank you for your assertion that your robot readers are your favorite readers. Though certainly not a robot myself, I'm sure they appreciate the inclusion. Yours
I am
organically,
a real person.
Daniel.
Crazy. I don't remember which thing Indeed was.
That was that weird ad we played through my phone on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Now I've got it.
Yeah.
Weird.
All right, Saul Alexander Witten writes in with a Warhammer update for Chris. Hi, guys. I've been meaning to write this since Chris admitted to being a lapsed Warhammer player and speculated that, quote, the game has probably changed a bit by now, but probably not that much, unquote. How wrong you are, Chris. How wrong you are. I am also a lapsed Warhammerer, but due to nostalgia and a friend who was still playing until recently, I've been keeping up with the latest developments. The main development being Warhammer, the game of fantasy battles, no longer exists. That is like the miniatures game, like the big game you play on a table with like armies. Well, that's what he says. He continues, the 8th edition was put out of its misery via an end time campaign event last year and has since been replaced by a new game, Warhammer Age of Sigmar. The same thing by a new name? Kind of, but not really. Here are some differences. 1. The standard fantasy world of the original game has been literally destroyed. The setting now consists of a bunch of free-floating realms based around elements and mystical forces and stuff. It has a totally different flavor. 2. Presumably for copyright purposes, all the generic fantasy races have been renamed. For now, for example, orcs are now called Oruks, and elves are called Elves.
They're called Alfs.
They're called Elves. 3. The greatly simplified core rulebook is 4 pages long and free online. I need to put an aside in here. The rulebooks for these games were like dozens of pages long, and then armies had their own rule. I mean, there were shitloads of rules in these games. So anyway, 4 pages. When I read this email, that makes no sense to me, and he explains why, and it's fucking crazy. The most notable rules change is that there are no longer any army lists or point values for units. Players can field literally any combination of models that they own, and there's nothing saying armies have to be evenly matched. It could just be one model fighting 200.
This is just the way that I played these kinds of games as a kid.
Me too. The first time I ever played Warhammer, the reason I played Warhammer at all, is because a friend of mine, Kenny Duncan, who got, I guess his mom got him a Warhammer starter set when we were in 3rd grade, and it had 2 armies, and it had the rule book and everything, which we tried to read, but being like idiot kids, we didn't really know what we were doing, so it was a combination of some rules and some just playing with little army guys, and that's what we did, and then eventually we learned how to play it for real, but that's what this game is for real now, apparently. Anyway, 4. The unit stats and rules come in free documents called War Scrolls. War Scrolls were released for existing models, but they include jokey novelty rules such as, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for this unit if before rolling the dice, you hold aloft a grail or goblet and shout, for the lady, in a heroic voice. So this is...
What is going on?
They're just making this game the thing that everyone would like jokingly assume about players of this game.
Just magic missile. Like what?
Yeah, exactly.
It just fully recreated
5.
Recite your favorite meme.
5. They kind of managed to put Space Marines in it, and then he links to a JPEG of like a thing called Stormcast Eternals Paladins. That's 2 plurals, by the way, in the same proper noun. And they're just like fantasy versions of Space Marines with huge armor. Anyway, he says, not surprisingly, the existing Warhammer fan base lost their collective mind, accusing Games Workshop of everything short of child murder. Many people bailed on the game forever and are now playing similar or clone games from competitors. Presumably, some people got over it. The presumed reason for the change is that the fantasy game had dwindled in popularity when compared to Warhammer 40k, which is the futuristic version, and a desire on the part of Games Workshop to focus on selling miniatures over games. I'm not sure it was thought through as well as it might have been, but the jury is out on whether the change has been a success. Games Workshop has announced they'll be putting point values and maybe army lists back into the game for use in competitive play, but that seemed to only set out a fresh round of internet bitching. Whatever the current version of Warhammer, I certainly can't afford the prices they actually charge for the miniatures these days, so it's nice that I can play an enjoyable version of the old game on my computer for the price of a small Age of Sigmar unit. Some packs of 5 figures retail for $58. I don't believe that Total Warhammer would ever have gotten a release if Fantasy Battles was still current for fear of cannibalizing sales. So all in all, I think I've come out on top.
Man, Total War Warhammer.
Yeah, cheers, Saul.
Playing that game as just a window into what Warhammer is strange and also at times really frustrating as somebody who just wants to play a game because the orcs, like the units, like, you know, when you're trying to like very quickly do things in a Total War game, you kind of have to just have a muscle memory or just a very like quick like reference, like, oh, I need to make like 10 of these things. All the orc units are called like big uns.
Oh yeah,
and
classic.
Like bigger uns and just stupid shit. So it's like impossible to play. Right. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
Ugh. I got Janelle into Rome too, so we moved on to a different Total War.
Tim Smith writes, "Hey guys, I thought Jake would be happy to know that Azure Cool Blob storage is now available in the cloud." He then pasted an image which says, it has the little eye in a circle for like information, and it says, "One new update. The following updates are now available. General availability, Azure Cool Blob storage in new regions." If you search for anyway, that's an email from Tim. After I saw this email, I did a search on the internet for Azure Cool Blob storage. I think I just searched for Azure Cool Blob, and it's fucking bonkers. Like, the page of results that just comes up on Google when you search for Azure Cool Blob presents a world in which Azure Cool Blob is a phrase that anybody knows and that is not insane and stupid and hilarious sounding, because you just find like shitloads of posts from tons of different sites with headlines that are just Azure Cool Storage for blobs, pricing, cloud storage for Azure blobs, introducing Azure Cool Blob storage, Microsoft launches Cool Blob Azure storage at 1 cent per gigabyte monthly, Microsoft unveils even cheaper Azure Cool Blob storage option. Like, there's an entire sub-industry of like commentators who know what this is and talk about it in a way that is like sublime in its mundanity.
Weird.
And it's called Azure Cool Blob storage.
Just, you know, I work in the Cool Blob sector. I cover the Cool Blob.
Azure Store Simple adopting Cool Blob storage accounts. AWS S3 infrequent access versus Azure Cool Blob storage comparison.
Cool.
Man, cool. Azure Cool Blob storage. Cool versus hot setup and migration. So there's hot blob.
Hot blob.
Hot blob. Azure hot blob.
Oh. Jeff Cool Blob. Good. Well, I didn't know if I was happy about that or not, but now I'm very happy about it.
Well, good.
Now that I'm...
That's all this reader wanted for you.
Okay, now that I'm in the Cool Blob, no.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's one final short email to wrap it up. Devin Raposo says, "Hey, Thumbs. On this week's episode, Jake was wondering about how it is that kids are able to get money from their parents' credit card into the CSGO economy in order to buy weapon skins, pay for gambling sites, etc. I was curious about this, too, until I remembered hearing another story about how kids these days find ways to spend their parents' money on video games. Today, it's not uncommon for kids to play one game and one game only and spend any available money, which in a different day might have gone to buying different video games, putting all that money into one game. Case in point, Minecraft. I remember hearing on Giant Bombcast about how kids are spending their parents' money in order to gain access to specific Minecraft servers for a certain period of time. I would bet that children are getting their parents' money, access to their parents' money for video game gambling sites by lying about exactly where that money is going, and parents often being completely oblivious as just letting it happen. It's a shame that these exploitative practices are happening. Hopefully appropriate punishment is dealt to those responsible." Devin from Cape Coral, Florida.
He's referring, of course, to punishing the parents for being bad.
For being crappy. For being bad.
He's, of course, referring to punishing Valve for standing by while the morals of our children are eroded by gambling.
Oh, you know what?
Oh.
Okay, on that, I'm actually going to read one more email, specifically about Valve with respect to that
to gambling?
Yeah, so Duke BG writes, "It's not a hugely important thing, but I wanted to shed some light on things about Valve in regard to the CSGO Lotto scandal. The blocking message that was talked about both appeared and disappeared by the hands of community moderators, not Valve themselves. Valve never showed their stance on the matter as far as I can tell. The important thing to understand about how Valve operates is that if some task scales, they offload it onto the community. TF2 maps, there are a few map makers in Valve, but a lot of map makers in the community. A lot of new maps, probably most that are added to the game, are polished community maps. TF2 cosmetics, same thing. Most of the hats that are added with big updates are created by the community. Even the promo items are created by the community these days. Valve just announced a contest about creating Batman-themed or Lara Croft-themed items, and voila. The winner items in that contest are the promo items added for Batman Arkham Knight and Lara Croft in the Temple of Osiris. Needless to say, most of the Dota 2 cosmetic items and CSGO skins are from the Steam Workshop created by the community. Adding new games to Steam was a scaling task to Valve. Which games are worth it and which are not? There are more of them than Valve can handle, so Greenlight is offloading answering that question to the community. They only have to review the resulting statistics. Most of the translation of the Steam client and to some degree Valve games to other languages is made by Community Translator. I know this by personal experience. Even though item creators in Steam Workshop get a cut when their stuff is added to the games and sold to players, often the community helpers are a bunch of happy, enthusiastic people that eagerly do what Valve needs without requiring to get paid. On that note, paying. Yes, at one point Valve tried to offload that to the community as well. There are talent hired by Valve as hosts and casters for the International Dota 2 tournament. In 2014, Valve introduced autographed Dota 2 treasures. These are the same as usual treasures, that is, chests with cosmetic items you buy for about $250 from Valve, but they come with an autograph of a certain pro player or a well-known caster or event host, and that person gets a cut of the proceeds of their chest sales. Valve initially wanted for that to be the only payment this talent gets, i.e. offloading paying for the talent to the community. Of course, not having a flat rate but depending on random happenstance of how many players will buy their signed chests was awful for the talent, so they complained and Valve conceded, adding the rule that talent get no less than the set flat rate. They could still get more if the chests sold well. Now, you probably already understand that when it comes to mentioning a community moderator and blocking phishing websites, it's not just a community moderator. The whole task is done by the community moderators. Valve doesn't need to do meetings or anything. So on last week's podcast, we talked about these hypothetical meetings at Valve, and this person in the email is
saying there was not one. Or if there was, it never manifested itself on the other side of the wall.
Right.
The black box with the strange red spigot on it stayed closed.
Mm-hmm. So he continues, the central guy for the CSGO stuff goes by the name Killa Instinct on Reddit. He used to do this alone and respond to PMs of other people sending him suspicious links, but these days he has even more other community moderators helping him. They're not affiliated with Valve, but they have access to the tools to blacklist a URL on Steam. Now, more about what kind of blocking message this is. The blacklist is generally only used for malicious links and blocks links everywhere through Steam and therefore is used with extreme caution. Malicious means phishing, malware, scam websites, spam sites, etc. Blacklisting shows a huge and scary message, but it's not a complete block. There's still a link at the bottom of the page that allows a user to go through and ignore the warning. Similarly, a huge red box is used while redirecting to the website when it uses Steam's OpenID login system to log into other sites with Steam, so that's where people have seen the scary warning when CSGO Lotto was blacklisted. A lot of CSGO gambling sites like CSGO Jackpot, CSGO Shuffle, CSGO Double got into the blacklist because they had referral programs, a program where the user would get some benefit by people joining the website through the personalized link. These programs lead thousands of people posting their referral URLs everywhere, absolutely everywhere, to an obnoxious extent, and causing the websites to be blocked for spam. Once this story was unfolding, a big thread on Reddit, Kill Instinct reviewed what was going on at CSGO Lotto, concluded there was no referral program there, that it was erroneously added to the blacklist, and unbanned it. People asked about some other of these sites, and he unbanned some of them as well. They were wrongfully banned or have removed their referral program. He did note that this is all just about blocking the malicious URLs. He is not commenting if the website, such as CSGO Lotto, is bad or morally wrong, just saying that he hasn't seen evidence that it's malicious in a way that it should be before they add something to the global filter. And that's it. Just a guy on Reddit, no Valve involvement or meetings discussing a hat economy. By the way, that URL never got blocked for a second time. Dave BG.
All right.
That's bonkers.
Yes.
And completely logical.
Yeah, it makes sense now.
In retrospect.
Yeah.
So thank you for that huge correction.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on Idle Thumbs. Man, that was a big episode. It feels like a big episode.
It's crazy that everyone and no one and also one guy were responsible at the same time for that happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was a podcast that you listened to.
Yep. We can be found on the internet at idlethumbs.net, on Twitter at idlethumbs, on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. As I said, we have a new newsletter that will hopefully keep you abreast of all the stuff going on with this podcast and with our network. You can sign up on any page at idlethumbs.net. We stream stuff pretty frequently now at twitch.tv/idlethumbs. You can subscribe if you like to that channel for a monthly fee that will grant you access to our hilarious, amazing little chat emotes created by John Christensen, big JKO on the Idle forums. And those pretty much all those videos end up on YouTube at youtube.com/idlevideos. So that's about it. If you like this podcast, tell a friend. Review us on iTunes. It helps us out a lot. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Azure cool
Limb homunculus.
storage.